What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, oh my God, isn't this just great? It's been an incredible week for Paraguay. I was thinking that, when we did our last episode, that, we would come in and be, a bit more somber, a bit more like, all right, we had the World Cup that we had. It was a good couple of weeks. But we're not going home yet. We are not going home yet because Paraguay come off with a historic, and I say that with from the bottom of my heart, historic win over Germany over there in Foxborough. The miracle of Foxborough, people are saying. They beat Germany on penalties in an incredible matchup. I mean, this is something that, if I had the chance of listening to our episode from last week, just before we got on the air, and you said that this was, if the result was going to go the way, it was going to shock the world, and it did. You were right. It shocked the whole world. Everyone is so happy. It's been incredible. I'll talk about I'll talk about our experiences of living it through it because I had the fortune of being there last night. Obviously, Fed at the game. Fed, that you were obviously in Paraguay. Ralph in Houston. Certainly all of us had three different sort of perspectives, and we'll get to that. But man, it's been an incredible week. I'm still on a high. Ever since, Monday, it's just been incredible. And now we get the chance of another date with destiny against France over there in Philadelphia on 4th of July. I mean, it's been such a memorable week, and I think that's such an understatement to say. But Fede, I mean, I had the fortune, like I said, going to the game on Monday, but I feel even more envious of the fact that you were there in Paraguay because I don't even want to. I've seen the videos, I saw the photos, I saw all the celebrations. I mean, yeah, it was incredible. I think that's all I can really state from all of that end. But the simplest question I'll ask you, but maybe the easiest question I could ask anyone out of the two, out of all of us here, how are you, man?
I'm feeling better than ever, Roberto. How do you? How do Ralph? How do everyone listening to Guarani Vision? Great to be back for another one, and so happy, guys. This is probably our happiest episode yet since we've been doing this. Yeah, I'm still with you, Roberto. Just as you were describing everything you went through because you were there at the game, I think the whole country saw you emotional because you were even on national TV, I believe, in a certain moment, man. You did a couple of interviews there with your dad. I really love that. Saw you in tears, just like many other fans that were there in the stadium, just like us here in Paraguay. I mean, I was looking around me, just like as Canale hit that last penalty, and everybody just went crazy, man. Everybody was just throwing their beers up. Everybody was just taking out their jerseys. Everybody was just running all over the place. I had the fortunate to watch the game again with people with a lot of fans. I believe I ended up in a bar at a certain point because I was in a mall, but then I had to move because it was impossible to see the game. It was at 5:30 in the afternoon here in Paraguay, so you could just imagine. I mean, people were getting off work as early as they could. Thankfully, a couple were able to even get out a bit earlier, but some of them were just right before the game. So for me, it was the opportunity of where can I see the game at that hour, and I went to a mall, and it was just packed, guys. I mean, there wasn't a single place to see the match. It was really hard in that sense for everybody to get home, but we got memories now, right? After this clash down against Germany, we actually beat Germany. We can say that now. We put the world in shock in the round of 32, and I'm just so glad to see our guys being able to do it in our way, right? Defending more than attacking, but that's the Guarani style, and that's what we actually were hoping to see from this team as we headed into this World Cup. So no surprise in that sense in the way that we played it, and a lot of tremendous performance. We're going to definitely go into that because there are a lot of players that really surprised us. So much to pick out of this game, Roberto, as we're heading into another battle with another European. Come on, France, bring it.
Another impossible utopia to capture. Ralph, I think obviously, you've had the fortunes of going to World Cups. You were there in South Africa when we beat Japan on penalties, similar day on the 29th of June. It's such a happy day now in the history of Paraguay now more than ever. But, I think it is safe to say that, even what we saw 16 years ago was such a happy moment. I think even if it is a round earlier and you add in an extra sort of circumstances. I think I can say that this is probably the happiest day that Paraguay's had in its small but rich soccer history.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking about that day in Pretoria in the penalty shootout against Japan, and it was a totally different feeling because Paraguay dominated that game, and they probably should have scored, and it ended 0-0. And when they went into penalties, there was that kind of tense feeling of they were, I assume they were favorites going into that game because Japan 2010 is not Japan of today. So they were probably favorites. They should have won the match. You know, there was a bit more pressure on them. Whereas this way was the opposite, right? I mean, they survived. Even before Enciso scores, definitely after Kai Havertz scores. Jonathan Tah scores and it isn't counted. I mean, like they're always under pressure, Paraguay, just defending, defending. And by getting to penalties, like, wow, we've made it. But then you remember it's Germany, because I was laughing with you before the game when you said that might be their game plan. I was like, yeah, but Roberto, Germany don't lose on penalties. That's a good strategy against anybody else, but not Germany. And then, I mean, I don't think they'd even missed the penalty since 1982 in a shootout. Like, not even missed. And then Kai Havertz, that one is saved. And yeah, it was, I mean, it was an incredible feeling. I was watching at home. Is funny story is that obviously Brazil played Japan in Houston on that earlier that day. And I had one daughter south of the stadium, another daughter north of the stadium. And I was like, if if I hit at the wrong time, I'm gonna get in traffic and I'm not gonna make it for kickoff. So I need to like work stuff out. And I was north of the stadium, and I said to my wife, I was like, you know what, I'm going because I don't think game is going to extra time. And I got in the car, started driving, and Martinelli scores while I'm in the car, and I was like, thank you for like making this decision. So I got past the stadium before everybody leaves, and then we got home like just before kickoff for the game. And then, yeah, most of that penalty shootout is pacing around my my living room, kitchen, because you can't sit down and watch that kind of game on TV. There's too much emotion. I mean, you were there, obviously, Roberto. Fede was explaining he's with lots of people. So my wife and I were just like, standing up. It's like walking around. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. It was incredible tension, and who knows what the players were feeling, but. I guess they didn't show it, or at least Canale didn't show it because he just put that penalty away like like nothing before. And here we are, right? Like Fede says, it's like one more huge challenge. It's the sequel, right? To already the epic, and now we got the sequel. Let's make it a trilogy. Let's go one more.
Let's do it again. No, I mean, like you said, I'm glad to hear all the different perspectives. Like I said, being there at Gillette was so nice. I was able to leave early. I guess that's all my story is, leaving early, and you already saw like all the Paraguayan fans start to head their way there because as we spoke about last week, there's a huge contingent of Paraguayans that are in the East Coast that, maybe didn't spend as much as they should have going to the West Coast because that was always the thing. It's like, do you wait for them to possibly come here a bit more closer, or do you just spend it all and just go to the West Coast to see what happened? Thankfully, I held off as best as I can. It was tempting. It was very tempting to go to one of those games, but I was like, let me just hold off. Let me see what we can do. And thankfully, the circumstances allowed me to go to that game and just being there. Like I said, I was with my dad, I was with my godfather as well. I had the fortune of going both of them together. And yeah, we were just over there congregating. There's an area over there at Gillette Stadium called Patriot Place. It's like a little like sort of like shopping area with like food courts, and basically it was a get together of all the fans right before the game because you leave that area and you walk towards it's right next to the stadium, so it's just right there. But yeah, being in there and seeing the banderazo, the la 79, basically going there and doing their sort of thing right there with all the Paraguayan fans. And then obviously seeing so many people that I haven't seen in quite some time, or, all the Paraguayan fans that are there, because I think that's the beauty of us as well, is that we're such a welcoming community, but also the fact that we basically know each other, be it from one line of connection. And I always say the example to my friends. I was like, all right, if I don't know you, then maybe my friend of a friend knows who that person is, and then we just make that line of connection, basically. It's like a family tree essentially. But then yeah, then going in there, and obviously, I had the fortune of being in the Paraguayan section. So it wasn't, obviously, like I said, it was not something where we were going to be the majority, but you can hear it. I'm sure both of you guys heard it in the broadcast of how the Paraguayan fans were just singing their songs and chanting, and the goals, obviously, when Enciso scored, and obviously in the penalty shootout, you kind of heard that sort of thing. It's like it's emotional. And then yeah, obviously when Canales scored, you guys saw it on social, everyone did. It just burst of tears, an emotion that several millions of Paraguayans felt around the world. And I think it's something that, I don't think it could be repeated. Well, let's see what happens tomorrow. But yeah, even I think a high like that, I don't think I've ever achieved in sports, ever watching sports or in my life. I think that's the beauty of it. And like I said, being there with my dad, I think it's something that it's irrepeatable, I would say. So I think that's all I can say from that. I don't want to get too emotional on that. I think I already shed enough tears already this week. Let's save it all for tomorrow if it all goes well. But no, I mean it was incredible. And I think we should start off first now as we talk about this game. The lineup. I think certainly because this was something that Ralph, and I'll go to you first, was something that people were still waitful for. It's like, all right, who's going to start? What kind of game plan was Paraguay going to do in a game like this where they know they were the big underdog? So, many people assumed, oh, they should probably just defend, which they did, of course, but they should go for a back five or something along those lines to make it very difficult for the Germans. But the lineup as it is, before we get into the actual game plan itself, the lineup as it was Hill in goal, the back four of Cáceres, Gomez, Jose Canale, making a start for the injured Omar Alderete. People assumed, okay, maybe he was going to be fit for this game. He was not. So he got his first ever start, and man, what an opportunity it was for him. Junior Alonso, and then you have that, four in the midfield of Almiron returning, of course, Bobadilla, Cubas, and Galarza, and then the front two of Avalos and Enciso. So Enciso was actually partnering with Avalos in that four. I mean, I guess I'll start from there on that. But, before we got into the game itself, and obviously the German lineup, I think, was also an interesting one because you saw Dennis Undav, a player that, many people assumed that would be in the sub. That was kind of going to be a sub that no one assumed that would probably play because of, Nagelsmann sort of decisions. He started. Musiala didn't start as well. So I mean, just looking at the lineups before we get into the game, Ralph. I mean, what did this lineup shock you, be it from the German perspective or the Paraguayan perspective? I mean, what did you think when you first saw the lineups for both teams heading into the game?
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things I was expecting, I suppose, is Almiron obviously came back from suspension, but Diego Gomez was suspended. So that was like an almost, you knew Almiron was going to have to come back in. And it was whether he decided to play him on the left and try and really press Kimmich or put him on the right where he's been more effective defensively. And he ends up putting him on the right. And so it's Galasa that has to do a bit more work on the left. But then the other question was really about the striker, right? I mean, I feel we've been around this a bit like if it's Avalos, okay, then he's going to be very static, very physical, but he has to hold up the ball. If he doesn't, what's he really doing in there? If it's like Peter or Arce, maybe they're going to make a bit more runs. Maybe they're able to press. They're a bit more mobile. And then obviously Sanabria is like the most technical, but probably the least useful the way they're playing at the moment without the ball much. So when it was Avalos, it was like, this is interesting because you would have thought they need to try and press a bit more the German back line because we don't really want them to build up through Kimmich, which is how they've been doing everything. But I mean, what do I know, right? Because I don't think Avalos, he didn't have a great game. But what he actually did was a really interesting thing. You mentioned about two up front. Yeah, he also came back to defend at times within Caesar, like would almost fill in. And I was like, that's a really strange place to see a number nine. Um, but that was just part of the whole idea of this shape and trying to make them so compact. And I think it particularly worked against Germany because the person that ended up getting the ball most is, I guess, Florian Wirtz. He was maybe their main attacking threat rather than Sane. And I think Paraguay preferred that all day, right? Because what we saw in the game against US is Paraguay don't want someone very quick who can beat you on the outside like Pulisic was doing for most of that first half or McKennie able to run in behind or Balogun, right? So if you have someone like Florian Wirtz who wants to always kind of cut inside and then find people like Havertz and Undav who are also not making those runs, they're kind of dropping a bit more to receive the ball. is much easier for Paraguay to defend against. And ultimately, I think Verts had a good game in some respects, but at the same time, he became very predictable to defend against. And so that's also asked about the Germany lineup. That's maybe the question mark about should Musiala have been from the start, or did he miss an idea of not using Brown to really overlap a bit more and put more pressure on? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's for Germany to worry about. But I thought from Paraguay was the surprise. I thought was up front, just because I didn't. I just imagined he was going to play like Pita or someone that can run a bit more and press. Oh, and then the other thing was just to talk about Damian Bobadilla, right? Bobadilla comes back into the starting lineup, having really had a horrible game against the US. There's no other way to kind of describe it. And he'd been used as a sub, but here he had to come in as a starter against, a very robust midfield. And I thought he did really well. I thought, Bobadilla really did very well without the ball. And that was what he struggled against. He was much better, and he seemed much more comfortable knowing that obviously he has Cuas, but with the Almiron Galarza doing a lot of the pressing as well, I think he kind of found his positioning to be much more comfortable than in the US game when there wasn't a Galarza. It was Almiron and Gomez. So yeah, I mean, overall, I was only surprised by Avalos, and I kind of just thought that, yeah, Germany played a bit into Paraguay's hands, which certainly helped them.
Yeah, I think Avalos just ends up playing because he's physically up for it, and he can go up against those huge European center backs sometimes, and he probably helps us out also when we have those corners against us, and Germany had a whole bunch of those in this game, so I think he was important in that sense. But yeah, I'm still not convinced with what he just brought to the team. The center forward is really hard in this Paraguayan team because the team doesn't play for them. So they end up sacrificing themselves so much for what the team needs more than the team giving them opportunities. So, you look at the stats and we only had 4 shots. So if you're a center forward, you're thinking to yourself, it's going to be really hard for me to score on this team. I need to have my footprint somewhere else. I need to do other things, and I think Avalos does the little things in the game that Alfaro needs. That's why he ends up. That's why he ends up playing. That's why he's been playing more minutes than other players even. And the other player, yeah, is definitely Damian Boadilla. For me, the surprise in the team, I wanted to see Mauricio in there just because I wanted to have somebody that could have the ball more. But just like Ralph said, I mean, he did so much without the ball. He was even the guy that brought the ball back when we lost it and Germany wanted to counterattack, and we got it back. And then we took it to the right side and gave it to Julian Ciso in the box to score that goal. So he ended up being that aggressive player that we sometimes need also alongside Cubas, right? That's the Santi that we don't have in this World Cup that we were going to miss in certain games. And that's what I wanted to see from Mian, even though I do think he's a better player when he has the ball. But we haven't seen much of that with this team, with that midfield. It's been more of a battle for these guys of trying to get the ball back. And Andres Cubas, I believe, had more help around him, especially with Damian in that first half. But for me in this game, Roberto, and I even told you, I think, when we had that private chat before the game, for me it was going to be what the rest of the players were going to bring to the team, what those guys that were going to come in the second half, the guys that we were going to need in the long battle, in aggregate, what they were going to bring. And I ended up being surprised to see Balbuena come in a game like this, for him to even have an important penalty. We had Tony Sanabria also hit an important penalty. We had Brian Ojeda come in the game at a certain point, and he performed really well. So this game, we're going to need everybody, and as we're going up against France now, I think we're going to need those names again.
Yes, we're gonna need those definitely, but that'll be a later conversation. But let's go into what we saw from the beginning, because obviously, like you said, Paraguay, games are really battle, and it was really one of those tense first few minutes. I think Paraguay even had a shot early on in like 30 seconds or something. I was impressed by that. I was like, wow, they're actually going for it. And that you thought, yeah, they were gonna go to defend, but they're not without getting some opportunities there. And boy, did we have a big opportunity. So obviously Paraguay did score first from Julio Enciso, and the way that it worked, I mean, it came basically off, off a corner kick, and obviously Manuel Neuer tries to clear it off, and he was able to punch the ball out of the box from the corner. But Germany just failed to maintain possession because it was Damian Boadilla that was actually able to win the ball. I mean, that was the crucial point of the game of the goal is him winning the ball back to then allow Almiron and Galarza to work it in, and then obviously Galarza sends in that cross, and then Julio. It's a special moment for Julio. The fact that we talked about him not scoring so far yet at this World Cup. He had 2 assists, and boy, did he get the goal of his lifetime, scoring the header to give Paraguay the lead. I mean, Fed, I'll go to you on this one first. It was a brilliant team goal to do that, and yeah, I can see you dancing in that sense too as well. I think that's everyone felt that way.
Yeah, everybody was dancing, Roberto. We were waiting for him to show up in this World Cup. We wanted to see Julian Ciso have his moment. This is not going to be his first World Cup. He's gaining that experience of playing these kind of games. So I was so happy to see him. And you could just see that as Galarza started moving on that right side, I watched that play several times already, and Julio just felt that it was his chance, right? I mean, he was asking for the ball down there, and the ball just came up after the pass from after the lob, pretty much from Galarza, and he was able to header that ball, and it was just a special moment because we were up in the game, and now it was our time to defend, and it was our opportunity to shock the world also in a certain way, right? I mean, I think we hit Germany in one of the opportunities that we had, and it was our way of looking at this game. I mean, I think that was probably the strategy also against the US in a certain way. We just couldn't hold them up, and in this game it was different because we were stopping Germany. It wasn't just about us trying to do our thing, but they were getting uncomfortable, as the game went by. I mean, Canale was doing his thing. The defense, everybody was being steady. Everybody was being focused on their job, and it was a special play. So far, I think it's been probably the best play with the team, and it just shows the character that this team and what they're all about. And just another huge play from Galarza, guys. So far, one of my favorite players in this team.
The big question for Gustavo Alfaro is like, why did Galasa not play against US is now becoming the question. But I think at the time we saw like he wasn't playing particularly well in Atlanta, and there was a feeling that maybe if you have Diego Gomez and you have Almiron, you might not need Galasa as well. And but yeah, he's cemented his place. And fun fact, it's only the second time Paraguay have scored a header from open play in a World Cup. So there you go. Romerito was the other one in 1986 because all the other headers are usually from, corners, free kicks, that kind of thing. And of course, really rare the Julian Ciso is the guy to get the header. But I think we talked a lot on this show about him, how he was a player that didn't get into the box much, and he was always trying to score the amazing goals from outside. And it was only really in Strasbourg, maybe a little bit at Ipswich, but mostly at Strasbourg where he really started growing into that role. And just towards the end of the season, he had to fill in as the number 9 because of injury to his teammate. And so it's like, all of this has like perfectly come at the right time because now he's able to fill maybe a kind of slightly different role. So for all, just talking about poor Avalos, I don't mean to single him out, but like, the guy that would score the header in the box, you'd think it'd be Avalos, not in CISO, but there we go. And yeah, I think Paraguay, Roberto, you said something about that how they started very quickly. I think that's definitely going to be a similar plan we'll see against France, right? Like at least that first 5, 10 minutes, see if you can find an early goal and then defend, similar to the Turkey result. And I'm sure we'll see bits of that. But this was all a game about how well you can defend your box, like specifically the box. If you look at the interceptions, the tackles, the clearances, like the amount that are on the edge of the box or just inside the box is like incredible. And they just made it so compact and so difficult for Germany, especially after the goal, right? To try and find a way back in. And that's where, Cubas comes to the fore. Like Andres Cubas was winning some incredible tackles. Like he just has that knack to he knows when it's time to make the direct pressure to try and win the ball, and when it's like, okay, physically I can't win this, so I
Oh,
need to
of course,
stand
yeah. I
up.
mean, look at him. Yeah, you're not
Like,
going to do that. So
yeah,
you got to find a
right?
different way.
but he just has that, he has that ability to do it at the right time. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously, Canale, Gomez, just the block shots. It just all became like this heroic defensive performance that you were kind of expecting. And I think I did say in the preview, like, I can't see Paraguay scoring twice. But hey, if you can stop the other team scoring twice, then you've got a good chance, right?
And we got really lucky because obviously Kai Havertz did score that first goal, which from Canale. I mean, we'll talk about him afterwards, but what a game from him! For a first ever start, I was just impressed by him wholeheartedly. Besides even the winning penalty, that's a whole different story. But just the performance that he had, a first start coming in, especially when Fede, this was a player that many people didn't have on anyone's radar just literally a couple months ago, weeks ago, even the common Paraguayan, like, yeah, obviously we're big football fans. We knew about Canal in his time, but from the common Paraguayan fans, no one knew, not many people knew about him. And then what we saw yesterday, on Monday was, that puts him in that legacy forever. I mean, I think that performance is going to be remembered for quite some time, Fede.
Yeah, yeah, especially because he had the opportunity to kick that last penalty, and I think that makes him already a legend, right, in this national team. So everybody's talking about his story, how hard it was for him to get there, what happened also in Lanús, the way that his spot kind of opened up not so long ago, and the way that he's just become so important in that team, the important goals that he has already scored with that jersey, and now he's doing it again, but with the national team. And just like you said, I mean, he felt so natural alongside Gustavo Gomez, the captain, and he was he. I think Junior Alonso didn't have the best game. I'm not seeing the best Junior Alonso in this World Cup. I saw him play for Mineiro in several games in Sudamericana before the World Cup, and I was thinking to myself, I'm worried about Junior because he's not in his top shape. He's not playing his best football, and thankfully he had, that bodyguard right behind him, and every time somebody would get through him, Canale would just come all over him and pick up the ball and not make many fouls, guys. I mean, we ended up the game with just two yellow cards, and and look at all those tackles that we made. Look at all those blocks. Ralph was talking about the way that we defended our box, and that just makes you even more proud, right? Because this is how you play football, guys. You can attack, you can play in the midfield, having the ball, or you can defend yourself. And this is how we feel about football here in Paraguay. This is how we feel strong in playing. So I think the players recognized the game. They recognized how they needed to play, and they felt comfortable with this kind of match, being aggressive. And Canale is all about that Paraguayan style. He's definitely that kind of player. So he just fit in right away, and I'm just happy about it because as we're moving in this World Cup, it looks like Alderete is not going to come back. So we're going to need more of Jose Canale.
We definitely will. And obviously, we went to extra time. People were thinking, "Oh my God, it's France '98 again." It's certainly, everyone had that issue, fear of like, 'cause that's the thing, Ralph, is that, obviously the history of Paraguay in these type of competitions is that they always lose on an epic sort of way and very late in the game. And we were very close in that because in the 12th minute of extra time, so right around the 100-minute mark, there was a corner kick from the right, and it saw Jonathan Tah head the ball into the Paraguayan net. But Orlando Gil, for him having one of the best games that I've ever seen from a goalkeeper, Paraguayan goalkeeper in any sort of way, I think he was the big hero there, getting fouled, I guess, by Anton. That many people thought it was very soft, but people did not care. When that goal was disallowed, everyone, of course I was there, everyone was celebrating that as a goal. But I think that's a moment that people are gonna remember, part of the epic as well, that we thought, oh, this is all gonna be over. They score late, but then we get saved by VAR.
Orlando Hill has his Orlando Bloom acting moment. I mean, it's a strange thing because basically that wasn't a foul until the World Cup, but now it is a foul. But there has been like a specific directive on it, and we can call it maybe the Arsenal rule, right? There's this idea that okay, maybe we need to protect goalkeepers more because at corners people are finding a way to almost be indestructible from corners, attacking teams. So there has been, I don't think it's only in this game, like I think we've seen it in some other matches where fouls on goalkeepers have been given that you're like, the contact isn't as much as usually will warrant a foul. But hey, we do not mind about that on this show. Or we are not anti-referee on this show, right? When those decisions go away. But the narrative for Paraguay, it wouldn't have been that bad in a way if that goal went in. Let's be honest, because yeah, that is the history of Paraguay. Like the history of Paraguay is you lose on golden goal. You lose 1-0 to Germany, 89th minute. You lose to Spain after you missed a penalty. But you didn't play badly. You played tremendously well. So if that had gone in at that time and Paraguay lost, it would I don't know. Personally, I would not have felt that bad. I would have felt very upset, right? That we didn't take it to penalties. But I would have been like, okay, this is fair. It's Germany, it's four-time world champions. They attacked more than us. They have more XG. Like, okay, I can take a 2-1 defeat. But then when it's ruled out, surely the players on the pitch felt the same thing, right? That it's like, whoa, wait a minute, this is, maybe the story, someone's going to change the script now. Maybe we don't have to be the team that always has the glorious defeats. Maybe we can be the team that actually beats a huge team at a World Cup. Because again, when we compare this to the Japan penalty shootout, which is the closest, I think, thing we've got in World Cups at least. Paraguay's never beaten such a big team, like, in these kind of situations. So, especially, I don't know. Okay, I haven't checked, but I don't think we've beaten a former world champion at a World Cup, or definitely not knocked one out because we've only knocked out Japan. So, I mean, yeah, it was like this is where the story is changing, and yeah, I mean, once that goes like disallowed, and you're like, okay, second chance. Then you start. They must have started thinking about penalties. Alfaro started thinking about penalties because, of course, he brings on Balbuena just for the penalty, and then we get to there where, in theory, anything can happen, but usually Germany win.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about Tony and Balbuena, right? They were so close to, being that Judas guy that we love having here in San Juan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it and you'll find out. We had those moments, right? We were gonna suffer, guys. It wasn't gonna be easy. We were gonna have to sweat it out, and that goal against us was, at a certain moment, I was thinking to myself as I was watching the replay, it is a foul, but are they gonna give it to us? Because those plays usually go to the big team, and at the end, I was thinking to myself, justice was made because it was a foul. I mean, you can't block the goalkeeper without playing the ball, and that's the feeling that I got in the play. That he distracts Hill, he stops Hill of getting to the bar, of making that next movement, of him moving towards the play, and he blocks him. So for me, it was justice. I mean, they couldn't have gone through with that goal, and I was thinking to myself also, thankfully, Orlando Hill is going to get his opportunity in the penalties because he was having such a tremendous game that you wanted to see him have his moment in the penalties. And after that play, I mean, he was all smiles because he knew that it was his time to shine. And that was kind of crazy also, right? I mean, just the whole mindset of our goalkeeper during the whole game, and just the way that he showed up in a huge game like this, when you still see that he struggles, and sometimes you want to see him get out more because he's huge. He always gets those balls, but in some plays he still hesitates. But as the games go, just like I said on the last episode that we made, I mean, he's convincing me, and now he's a legend also because of what he did in the penalty shootout. And Alfaro, in the press conference after the game, he was saying, "Hey, you guys, you had your doubts. Now we got a goalkeeper. Nobody's gonna be talking about this anymore." I mean, Orlando Hill is the man of the hour here in Paraguay.
It is crazy how you can be a villain to a hero like that. Literally like that. But yeah, and if you and Ralph, it's a good point because you think to yourself, everything might go your own way, but it is the history of Paraguay to screw it up because yeah, even in the penalty shootouts, like you said, going into that, Germany don't lose. They don't lose on penalties. That's always been their MO. They're a team that have always been so good, and you think to yourself, okay, great, we had our fun for 120 minutes. We had our chance, but now it's back to reality. It's back to what the what's it called? the status quo is. And even then, you see Havertz, he gets his penalty saved by Orlando Gil. We score our goals. Woltemad gets his saved. And you think to yourself, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. And then again, Sanabria and Balbuena both miss it in a row. And you think to yourself, oh no, it can't be. The ghost of us, having this bad luck at World Cups or major tournaments is going to screw it us again. But then Jonathan Tah sends in one of the best field goals I've ever seen at Gillette. And I've seen a lot of good field goals in that stadium growing up. That has to be one of the greatest I've ever seen, maybe the greatest, because him missing. And like you said, yeah, Germany don't miss penalties. Germany not only win shootouts, they don't lose shootouts, but they don't even miss penalties. They always score. And here they missed three against Paraguay. And then Jose Canal is scoring. Oh my God. It was incredible, Ralph. Let's call it as it is. It is never a perfect Paraguay game, I'll tell you that much. And I think that's what makes this game so special. One is to say, oh, you won 1-0 and you defend 89 minutes and stuff like that. But all of the circumstances that came through that, it's elevated into forever. Not just in our sort of history, but I think in World Cup history too.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a podcast on the penalty shootout itself, right? There's enough material there because, like you were just talking through, the history, then who misses, then like Paraguay have the match points to do it, and they miss both. And of course, we haven't talked about Joshua Kimmich is looking for his sixth penalty taker. And again, this is because Germany have never had to take six penalties before. It doesn't happen. Like this was actually the first time in a World Cup. Oh no, sorry, second time after like 1974 or something. But like it's very rare that their penalty shootout goes to six, right? So everyone back home in Germany or back in Germany was saying, oh, I can't believe, they hadn't planned this, they hadn't prepared. But prepare for something that never happens. It's they weren't ready, and in the end, it's Jonathan Tah does come up, but kind of not reluctantly, but he wasn't the first choice, right? I think it was Goretzka, and Goretzka kept saying no. And he's a central defender, and you're like, ooh, central defenders on penalties. But then what did Paraguay do? They bring in Canale for his penalty, another central defender, and actually third centre back that took a penalty, right? Because you had Gustavo Gomez, you had Fabian Balbuena, you had Canale. That was the essence of Paraguay that you have in your in your penalty shootout, half of your penalty takers are centre backs. Like that's very Paraguay. And two of the three scored, of course, with Canale himself. And you think about Canale, yeah, he's one of those people that he he's in a way like similar to Gustavo Gomez, like comes through Libertad, but then unlike Gustavo Gomez, he didn't have like the high profile move and then become the hero that he's been. He's like had to slowly build his way through, but they both ended up playing for Lanús, which is also another interesting thing. We should shout out to Lanús because I think you also have Almiron, so you have a bunch of, Lanús has kind of helped this Paraguay team.
Cáceres
Um,
also.
Cáceres, yeah, of course, yeah. So anyway, then he's like slowly his legend is built up with the Sudamericana win and scoring in the Maracanã and all that kind of stuff. And then you think, yeah, this is a huge moment for Canale, but he's just been kind of adding those to his career very recently. He's like he's ready for one more, one more epic moment. And there it is. And he puts the penalty so well, right? He doesn't look scared at all. Um, and
The
and it's
Galarza penalty too. Oh my God. It's
Yeah, right.
how do you have the huevos to do that against Manuel Neuer, arguably the greatest of all time?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The other amazing thing about Gil and Neuer is that Orlando Gil grew up wanting to be like Manuel Neuer, and they're like in a penalty shootout together, which no one really expects because of the age difference. And yeah, there's so many storylines, so many narratives, and just amazing that Paraguay's the one that came out on top, right? And we're not sat here talking about, oh, they did so well, but they didn't quite get there, which is where we've been before with this story. And it's so nice to be on the other side, right?
It
And
feels
then
great,
talking
Fede,
about the
doesn't it? It,
victory.
it feels
Yeah.
absolutely great, doesn't it, Fede, to be on the right side of history this time.
Yeah, and it feels like we already won our World Cup, guys. I mean, for me, and for a lot of people here in the country, it just feels like, we won our World Cup game. We won a World Cup final in a certain way, and it was the biggest game in the last 16 years. We can't forget about that. for the new generation, it was the biggest game of their life. That's why the people went out to the streets. That's why people went crazy. That's why it was a holiday the day after. I mean, it was just a special night, just another one because the qualifiers, we already went through that when we had the opportunity to confirm our spot in the World Cup. But this was even bigger because of the way that it ended up happening, and with the penalty shootout, with the whole drama that happened during the game. So I mean, it's going to be a game to remember, no doubt about it. It's been the most important game in the last years for Paraguayan football, and people are going to remember it. This just brings everybody even closer, I believe, in football here in the country. And I've never seen as many flags as I'm seeing in Asunción, around the world, around the country. Roberto Ralph, I mean, people are just proud of their team. People are just proud of being Paraguayan and what their team is doing in this World Cup.
So
Well, let me tell you a quick anecdote. So my daughter's at summer camp this week, and previously at school, people said, "What is Paraguay? What is a Paraguay?" Like people have no idea, right? And then she said, everyone was talking about how Paraguay beat Germany in the World Cup. And I was like, there you go. Did you tell them you're from Paraguay? She's like, yeah. And I don't know if they heard me because they weren't as surprised as I thought they'd be. But it's like, for her personally, living over here, right, and having people always say, what is Paraguay? And then be like, oh no, everyone knows who they are. They're the team that knocked out Germany. And there was a girl I saw on Instagram like after the game. She's a bit older than my kids, but she was saying the same thing. She was like, she's obviously lives in the US, she's perfect English, and she was saying like, now everybody knows what Paraguay is and who we are, kind of thing. And it was a great moment, I think, for that as well.
yeah, no, and then I can obviously repeat on that end. I mean, obviously the win was big as it was, but like several people, obviously we know as, Paraguayans in one sort of fashion is like we're not a big country, and I can proudly say for a lot of people that for a lot of my friends and the people that I know, I'm the only Paraguayan they know. And so when something like this happens, of course everyone's going to be happy for you. Everyone's going, I still have so many messages from so many people that, have, were just so happy for me. And, the fact that, I think they're happy for everyone because it's like, it's not the fact that, it is the way that it happened, of course, but it's just because, I think, and you even saw that even in the memes of like, and the support on social media from everyone. Not I don't know if it was to hate watch Germany because let's be real, Fede, and of course Ralph, let's be real too. Well, we all have our sort of dark what's it called? I don't even know the word. Basically, we know what it's like to lose to Germany. Argentines have a history of it. Brazilians, obviously, English fans. I mean, come on, let's go from there. We all have something against Germany. They
Beyond
always
football,
say
Roberto, beyond football, in what can
that.
we actually beat Germany? I mean, you put up Germany against Paraguay, a small little country, one of the smallest countries in South America, in not just sports, overall.
Yep.
And you're thinking to yourself, in what can we actually beat Germany? Only football can do it.
Well, it's the quote from Gustavo Alfaro post game. Those guys were formed in the top level academies, and we come from the red earth. We play barefoot on the earth, and the parents sacrificing everything to make ends meet at the end of the month so that their children could realize their dreams. It's that sort of thing that puts even more to the epicness. It's not just, Ralph, it's not just the fact that you just beat Germany on a penalty shootout in a World Cup game. It's all the surrounding factors that allow a team like Paraguay is it as itself beating Germany.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's the fact that to Fede's point, like they're not meant to be able to compete on anything in anything else, and like I don't know, militarily, economically, there's no chance. And so, put 11 against 11. Let's maybe level the playing field with VAR as well, helping us out, and then we've got, then we've got a great chance. No, and yeah, it is really, but it's really hard to put into words. But just one thing I wanted to remind everybody is this group of players has now beaten Brazil, Argentina, and knocked out Germany. France is coming, but it's like world champions. Oh, Uruguay they beat as well.
Uruguay too, exactly. Yeah. So four
So
world champions.
they're beating world champions, like or former world champ, well, current world champions and former world champions. I mean. I think it was Enciso said he said like we don't fear anybody. We respect them, we don't fear them. And it's like, yeah, they have no reason to because each time the tests come, at the moment they're really passing them. So I mean, just as you look ahead to France and you think, I mean, this really sets you up. France is a different animal to Germany. I mean, we've seen this. The team is, woo, the team is so good in so many different areas of the pitch and plays very different to Germany. But just you're building yourself all these moments where you can say, yeah, actually, I can do this. Like, I'm not afraid. And it's going to be another battle on Saturday where it is, yeah, well, what can we beat France in? Well, we have Body is number one soup, huh? Take that. You can't take that from us, France, right? Like, you have the cuisine, but we have Body. But apart from that, I don't know where else we're
To be fair, our
completely.
food is better than them. Let's be real. Come on, we've been to France. We know. I think we can beat them on all. And I don't want to joke around for any of our French listeners because we have all the love for them. It's France. I'll see. I'll keep it at that. I'll just leave it at that. It is France. It's like with Germany. Oh, it's Germany. So, besides that, all right. So now we go into Saturday. Let's go to tomorrow at the time of recording. I'll have the fortune of being there as well. Maybe I'm a good luck charm. Maybe I'm a bad luck charm. Who knows? That's a whole different story. But I will be there in Philadelphia. This is the game where obviously, many people kind of feared in a way because everyone, people think about, oh, we can play France and we're going to get them all the way. Now that it's actually going to happen, you see that fear. It's like, whoa, okay, now it gets difficult because it is a France side, as you've seen all World Cup, are looking incredible. They, it's, was it 12 goals, I think, so far in the World Cup, only 2 goals conceded. They beat Senegal, a very good team. They beat Norway without Erling Haaland, but still they beat Norway with a good team. They beat Sweden 3-0. Obviously the connection of Paraguay and France is huge from huge historical factors, similar to Germany in 2002. We still have that, the first big heartbreak, I think, for a lot of the generation of fans that got into Paraguay in the modern era of Laurent Blanc scoring that golden goal. And, you kind of feel like that moment, it kind of could have changed history, Ralph. I'll go to you for that moment. Could have, if Paraguay had beaten France over there, who knows how history, maybe we don't get this sort of situation. We don't get France being the team that they are now in the 21st century. But yeah, no, this is a huge test. Obviously, you had the fortune of writing on your Substack, yesterday, today, I should say, and then obviously this is it's a whole different game. And already it's been talked from outside of the pitch. We've seen the former world champion Christophe Dugarry already dismissing the game, saying that they'll be thrashed. That they're gonna. He said even twice to reiterate himself. He said they'll be thrashed, and all this talk. It's a similar thing when the Germany pundit said that Paraguay were a third-rate team. So this is just the sort of trash talk that we're used to it. But yeah, I guess before we go into the actual game itself and what we can see from it, I mean, there's a lot riding on this one as well, but there's also the historical factor from both sides of because how Paraguay and France. You have to remember as well, 1958, the first World Cup that Paraguay went to after quite some time, and they were in the first World Cup in 1930, but this is the one that they qualified for in 58, and then obviously they took a long time before coming back in 86. So France is very well remembered in Paraguay from either a recent standpoint or a huge historical standpoint as well.
Yeah, the game in Lens in 1998 is, I think, one of the earlier memories I have of the Paraguayan national team because my first World Cup I remember is 94, but obviously Paraguay weren't there. And it ends with Chilever picking people up off the floor after they've been beaten by this new FIFA experiment, right? The golden goal, which doesn't exist anymore. Which, by the way, yesterday UEFA are not going to use the cover your mouth is a red card. So Almiron is maybe in a piece of history along with
He
Hincapié
was
now. But
basically he was basically what is it called, a
like a
test
guinea
rat,
pig.
a guinea pig. There we
Yeah,
go.
guinea pig experiment. Yeah, so a bit like the golden goal in Paraguay, but um, I was surprised by Dugarry because okay, Dugarry didn't play that game, but he was on the bench in that match, and he will have seen that France had 37 shots or something. They also suffered about 25 fouls, or something crazy that Paraguay put in. I mean, fouls are easier to get away with it without being carded. But I mean, he would have seen that game and would have seen how Paraguay took it to them and also was happy to be under siege and not panic, right? And we could get something very similar. So the idea that Paraguay would be thrashed, I don't know, is a bit surprising. What we haven't seen from this French team, you just mentioned how many goals they've scored. We haven't seen them under pressure yet, right? Because I mean, yeah, the one goal against Senegal is in stoppage time and they've already won the game. Even though I think Norway scored in the first half, they're still 2-0 up before that. And it's, let's be honest, that Norway game was not very competitive because Norway made 10 changes. So suddenly it's like it's going to be ridiculously hot, which won't affect Paraguay as much as it will affect France. They must have in the back of their mind, oh, these guys, we thought we're playing Germany and now we got to play these guys that knocked them out on penalties and we're going to do the same thing as Germany and have all the ball and attack and we know they're ready for that. So doubts could creep in, of course. They have so much quality. I mean, Olise, Mbappe himself, Barcola. Then they got like Cherky coming off the bench. There's so much quality there. But it's still going to be, I mean, Paraguay's still going to do the same thing. They're going to make it so difficult, so compact. The big question, I think, or the big like difference maybe to the Germany game is how do you really stop it getting to Olise and Mbappe in positions where they could expose you one on one because individually, like if they get one on one, it's like we're done. Like there really is no chance. Because I spoke earlier about how Wirtz likes to cut inside sometimes, and honestly, he's not that quick. I mean, he's quick feet, quick thinking, but I don't know. He's not going to really beat you on the outside. He's always going to come in. So you can kind of show him in, and then you've got two Paraguayans there. If like Mbappe starts taking you on the outside, or Olise just has enough space that he's able to make a pass, then it could get very difficult. But I can't see Paraguay not understanding the assignment, right? I mean, they've been here doing this now with about 20% possession for the most of the tournament. They're almost perfecting this style to get something out of the game. Again, the question mark is really when we get the ball, how do we not give it away so cheaply? Because we did that against Germany and we suffered a bit. It was only Almiron who was really smart enough to be able to draw a foul, keep the ball a bit longer and take some of the pressure off. So that's maybe one of the things that they'd really want to change ahead of this game, just to give themselves a bit more of a breather and not be giving the ball away so easily.
They
Fede?
have no doubt about it. The best attack in this World Cup. I mean, just talk about those four up front guys. I mean, Dembele, who already had a hat trick in this World Cup. Oli said that's making the difference pretty much in every play, every chance he gets the ball on his feet. He has made several assists already. I mean, yeah, these guys, yeah, they get me scared. No doubt about it, right? I mean, Barcola is probably the one that has stepped up lately in that starting 11. But then you have Mbappe, who's just an elite player, one of the best to do it, and he's gonna have his opportunity. He's gonna try to make this France team work because he is their leader offensively. But there is a build-up to how they work, right? They try to build their football up from Rabiot, I believe, in that midfield, and I do think he's very important. And hopefully we can do that, just like Raf is saying. Hopefully they don't get too close to our box and we can defend a little up front. We can take the game more to the midfield. I don't think that's gonna happen much, but it's the idea, right? For their creative player, their best players to come to the midfield to get those balls because we're getting the best out of them. Hopefully that's the game that we have, and hopefully we can hit them on the counter attack and the opportunities that we have. But for me, I mean, watching the game that qualified France to this clash down against Paraguay. I mean, Sweden, you couldn't do anything more. I mean, they didn't even make them sweat. I mean, just to be honest with you guys, there's so much difference right now between France and those kind of teams that are from the same continent, but they just look from another world because France has been doing that the last World Cup is not just this one. I mean, they went to the finals. The last one, the one before that, they were champions with the same coach. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're not losing motivation, guys. I mean, after losing the last World Cup, they just look more and more motivated, renovated with new players also in their team. So as of right now, I mean, just be happy, embrace the chance. You know, it is a chance to be one of the best teams in the world. So I'm looking at it from that side, and hopefully our players are also looking at it as an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity to take out one of the best teams out of the competition. And everybody's going to be looking at you differently if you can get through France.
If you get through France, Ralph, dude, I mean, again, we're getting really ahead of ourselves, but in this sort of scenario that if it does happen, can we start dreaming?
If you knock out Germany and France in a World Cup, what more do you need to do, right? I mean, I
Plus,
don't.
the only ones that are out there are Brazil and Argentina, assuming they qualify, of course. Teams that we've already, as you said beforehand, have beaten. So the only big one would be between Spain or Portugal, which are, one of those two are going to leave, are going to get
Don't
out.
forget England because they're also a
And
former
England,
world
yeah,
champion. But yeah,
of
but
course.
I don't know if England
Sorry
get
about
past,
that.
get through Mexico. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if you start beating France and Germany, that's I mean, yeah, you're a candidate because that's just crazy. I mean, and people can talk about your style and that it's not you're not playing with the ball.
Hey,
But
Arsenal did that. They won the league on that, and they went to again different
yeah,
scenario.
people, effective football, right? If people don't like it, but it's still effective. I mean, yeah, but just to go back, I think it is a much bigger task because it's the Germany team. Just to put in like comparison, it's Nagelsmann's first World Cup. A lot of them it's their first World Cup. Um, with France, it's like Mbappe's on his way to his third final. He's looking to go to. He's already won it once, and he's the captain. Deschamps has won more games than any other manager at the World Cup. He's won the World Cup as a player, as a captain, actually, as manager. So they come with a lot more, like they're a lot more. I think I put street smarts or something in the Substack. Like they know what they're doing. I don't think this isn't their first rodeo, right? Where they faced a low block. They'll be used to that too. So it is another test. But yeah, I mean, if honestly, if you start testing them that first water break,
I was about to say, what's the scenario? What's the scenarios where you think to yourself, okay, yeah, maybe there is a chance in there? Like, what's
I
the
think
one
if
thing to go into?
honestly, I think if Paraguay get to the first water break and it's 0-0 and you can assume France has missed some chances and they'll be so hot and they'll be like, oh, like I have better ways to spend my summer. And they'll probably look over at Paraguay. They'll be talking in a language they don't understand because they'll be talking in Guarani, and they'll look like they've hardly sweat, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is, maybe I'm in for something." So honestly, that it's getting to that first water break. I know we don't like to talk about quarters and stuff, but it is now the reality. If they get to that first water break 0-0, I think France will start to be a bit like, this isn't going to be the game I hoped. Because again, if you look at their scoring times, I think they've scored in the first 15 minutes in most of the games. Or very early, they like just relieve the pressure and they're doing, they really like steamroller the team as soon as they come out. So if Paraguay just can hold back on that, and yeah, then anything could happen, right? We could see some magic.
Fede, how would one want to stop this France side? Is it just defending as best as you can? Is there a way for Julio? And got to remember Diego Gomez is back as well. I'm sure he's going to be a very important piece. He hasn't had a good World Cup so far, but you can't deny the talent that he has. And I think he still is someone that could kind of direct those pressures on players like Chouameni or Rabiot in a position, in a rotation kind of with Galarza and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get a better game from the players that play on the sides, right? Hopefully we can stop them there because I'm really comfortable with what the center backs are doing and with that midfield that we talked about Cubas and even though it was Damian Bobadilla on the last game also, but I'm comfortable with that. If they're gonna be our best players of the game, with Orlando Hill, obviously stopping at least 10 balls probably against France. That's the kind of game that I'm expecting, guys. Another very dramatic kind of match, just a nail biter till the end. No, no, I'm not with Ralph. I don't think it's just about the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter. I think it's gonna come down maybe into the last ball. We're gonna suffer and hopefully not make any mistakes, guys. Hopefully we have that perfect game because that's the kind of match you need to play against France. You blink and they score two on you.
It's gonna be a tough task. So I guess from both of you guys, and I'll ask you before we get to the actual prediction and whatnot. Is there a world that Paraguay can beat France? Ralph?
Outright in 90 minutes? I don't think so.
So it would have to be on extra time or penalties again, basically, in this sense. And do
Yeah.
even after all that, do you still fancy them on penalties?
If it gets to penalties, I'd actually fancy Paraguay over France, I'll be honest. Because if it gets to penalties for Paraguay, that's an achievement. For France, that's a huge disappointment.
Fede? The
So
pressure is on them. You have to realize that too. The pressure is on France. They're coming in to be world champions. That's their thing. They're going to win the World Cup. Here it's like we're gonna
That's
make it difficult for them.
the responsibility is definitely on them, and we're gonna try to surprise the world. There is a chance. I think this team is just building up confidence after you beat Germany. How can you feel about yourself and the way that you approach the next game, right? So, hopefully that comes in handy for this game against France. The experience of playing against a good European team. I mean, everybody was saying Germany is a good team, but they weren't saying they were going to be world champions. But before playing us, everybody was saying that
You gotta
Germany
respect them. You gotta respect them always. You gotta respect.
everybody was saying that Germany had done a okay group stage before that game against Ecuador. So, I mean, respect to our guys. And I wasn't believing on them against Germany, but I'm turning it around now. I'm believing on our guys. I think they can do it. They're in it for the history. They're in it for these kind of games for the big matches, and I think we can do it, Roberto. In 90 minutes, in penalties, somehow, some way, the whole country's gonna be behind our guys, just like they were with Canales. The 7 million Paraguayans behind him. We're gonna do it again.
All right, so let's go it on here on the record. Ralph, what happens tomorrow in Philly on the 4th of July, the 250th anniversary of the United States as well?
So in the first Rocky movie, right, which is in Philadelphia where they're playing, he goes the full distance against Apollo Creed, and he ends up losing by split decision,
Thanks for
which like
spoiling it, man. I'm joking.
yeah. If you haven't seen the 1976 classic, I think that in footballing terms would be Paraguay losing on penalties to France, but I can't see us losing on penalties. So I think it's going to be the Rocky movie, and we're going to win on penalties.
Oh my God. Wow. Fede.
We got Ralph believing. I can't believe.
Yeah, I'm
I
about
can't
to say
even.
you're the
I'm
last
still in
person
shock
to.
with Ralph after
I don't
this.
know if he's doing this to
I
save
wasn't waiting for
himself.
that.
I don't know
I
if he's
wasn't
doing
waiting
that
for
to save
that.
himself from someone else, but if he's saying it, no. Okay, Fede.
Whew, this was so hard, guys. I think we're gonna have another nail bite. I think we're gonna go to extra time, and I think we're not gonna have penalties. I think we're gonna win it in extra time. I think
Oh my
somehow, as
God.
France think that they're gonna win it somehow, I think we're just gonna surprise them and the rest of the world. And Paraguay's gonna come out of this game alive and moving on, and France is gonna go back to Europe just like Germany did.
You guys are believers, man. You guys are real believers. I would love to be a believer. I don't see it. I think it ends here. You know, someone's got to be a contrarian because if we all three of us agree, we gotta be like, okay, what's going on? We're going crazy. No, I think there's gonna be some balance. I think there's gonna be a very hard contested game. I don't think. I think Dugari's comments are gonna be very much eaten in sort of discuss. I think we lose 1-0. 1 hard contested game, but some sort of mistake. Mbappe scoring. I mean, come on, it's 1-0. But hey, I'll after the week that I've had and the week that we all have had, you know, I think it's the least we can do is to lose with our heads held high. So we'll wait and see. I mean, if we have to come back on next week to preview the quarterfinal game, which by the way will be in Boston. So we get the winner of Canada Morocco, which I mean that's a whole different story. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I hope everyone enjoys this game. I'm gonna have the fortune of doing so, and hope both you guys, Ralph and Fede, enjoy it as we have a great game coming up over there on the 4th of July, a big day in the United States, a big day for Paraguayans as well. And I'm super excited to see it as we close out another great episode for myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna. Thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.